Welcome to POSH Deep Dive, a series that goes beneath the surface of India's Prevention of Sexual Harassment law. In every episode, we explore the real meaning behind the act. Come, let's listen to one story, one deep dive at a time.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We take your source material, break it down, and pull out what you really need to know.
Keeping you informed.
Exactly. Today, we're looking at something, quite challenging. It's about workplace protection. We're diving into the Sexual Harassment of Women at the Workplace Act 2013. You know it as the POSH Act.
A really crucial piece of legislation.
Absolutely fundamental for safety, for inclusion, but its effectiveness. It's being hit by a, frankly, growing problem, people misusing the very system that's meant to protect.
That's right. And, the groundwork for POSH was laid way back. Think 1997, the Supreme Court's Vishaka guidelines.
Landmark stuff.
Totally. The aim was clear then, and it's clear now. Organizations have to prevent sexual harassment. They have to make the workplace safe. But our deep dive today, it's about this serious weakness that's showing up on the enforcement side. These false complaints are starting to pop up more, and they really threaten the trust people have in this law.
And the numbers. Well, they show the stakes are getting higher. It's complicated because, look, it's good that people know about the system, that they're using it. We want that.
Right. More awareness is positive.
But we've seen this huge jump in complaints overall. The sources point to a 31% increase in reported complaints. That was in the 2022-23 fiscal year compared to the one before.
31%. That's significant.
And it looks like that trend is just continuing upwards, maybe into 2025. So, yes, more reporting, good. But tied right into that surge is this worrying rise in, malicious misuse.
It creates this real tension within organizations, doesn't it? The law is meant to be a shield.
Yeah.
But sometimes, occasionally, you see it being used like a weapon.
Okay, so let's unpack that for everyone listening. What do we actually mean by misuse or a false complaint under POSH? What's the definition people, especially in organizations, need to grasp?
Okay, the definition is very specific, and it all comes down to intent. A false complaint is one where the claims are intentionally false. That's key.
Intentionally false.
Yes, and made with the specific intent to malign the other person, the respondent, to damage their reputation.
That intent part, that sounds crucial. That's what an investigation has to figure out.
Absolutely.
But how do you do that, practically speaking? How do you tell the difference between someone making a genuine claim, even if it's messy or hard to prove, and someone acting out of malice? What if someone comes forward, they've been harassed, but, no witnesses, no emails? Is that false?
No, absolutely not. And that's maybe the most critical distinction for any internal committee, any IC to understand. Non-availability of evidence should never, ever be seen as proof of a false complaint.
Okay.
Someone can go through terrible harassment and just genuinely not have external proof. That's that's a case of insufficient evidence. It might mean the complaint gets dismissed, sadly, but it's not malice.
Got it. So we're talking about active lying, a deliberate plot.
Exactly. A malicious plan to wreck someone's career or reputation. That's the focus.
And when the courts look at these situations, what kinds of motives are they seeing? Because it takes a certain hostility to weaponize a protective law like this.
The courts have seen a pretty wide, sometimes frankly, shocking range of motives. Sometimes it's what you might expect. A personal grudge against a boss or a colleague.
Right, settling scores.
Or maybe someone's trying to save their own job, create a diversion if they're in trouble for something else.
A smokescreen.
Kind of. But what's really disturbing is something the sources mention. Sometimes these complaints are apparently lodged as a prank.
Hold on. A prank? Using a sexual harassment complaint system.
That's what the source material indicates.
Wow. It's almost impossible to fathom the level of poor judgment there. Thinking something that could ruin someone's life and career is funny. That points to a massive gap in just basic workplace understanding and culture.
It really does. And this misuse, it's not just contained to simple office disputes anymore. The Supreme Court itself has pointed out what they called a worrying trend.
Okay, what's that?
It's where former partners, after a breakup, try to reframe long-term consensual relationships as harassment. And they're not just using internal HR policies. They're trying to use the country's broader penal laws.
Penal laws, so criminal charges.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Criminal or punitive statutes. It shows the legal system itself is grappling with how to handle this kind of retaliatory behavior spilling out from personal lives into formal complaints.
That jump from a personal issue to a formal, potentially criminal complaint is...
Yeah, incredibly damaging. So let's get into that, the really deep consequences, the ramifications of this misuse. If you're running a team or a company, you know a genuine harassment claim is serious, but a false claim, it introduces this kind of toxic rot. It feels much more insidious. For the person falsely accused, the costs are just devastating, reputation gone overnight, career completely derailed.
And the ripple effect through the whole organization, that's what really kills productivity and trust. When false complaints happen, or even when there's just a fear of them, you get this culture of, hypervigilance.
They went walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
Exactly. People get terrified of being misunderstood.
Yeah.
We hear about managers who become reluctant to mentor junior colleagues of the opposite gender.
Seriously?
Yes. Or people insisting on long, formal email chains for things that could be sorted with a quick chat. Why? Because they're scared of not having a paper trail if something gets twisted later.
So collaboration just grinds to a halt because everyone's documenting everything out of fear. That kills creativity. It kills speed.
Totally. Suspicion replaces collaboration. And then there's the resource drain. People often underestimate this.
How so?
Well, a false complaint takes just as much time and effort to investigate properly as a genuine one. You need rigor. You need fairness. This ties up senior people, the internal committee, legal teams, resources that should be focused on the actual business.
Can you put a number on that for leaders listening? This isn't just HR admin, right? It's a real cost.
Oh, it's huge. Depending on who's involved and how complex it gets, a single investigation, it could easily eat up, say, 80 hours or more for each member of the IC, maybe legal counsel, often senior execs too.
80 hours per person.
Potentially. Think interviews, reading documents, writing reports, deliberations. That's time stolen from innovation, from sales, from running the company. And this is especially tough for organizations that already find POSH compliance, a bit challenging or burdensome.
Yeah, it just feeds that narrative that the law itself is the problem.
Exactly, instead of seeing it as protective.
Which brings us to, I think, the most critical question for anyone who actually believes in why this act exists. How do these false claims end up hurting the real victims, the very people the law was made to protect?
Yeah, and that's the truly heartbreaking part. Every single false accusation leaves a residue of skepticism in the organization's memory. It makes it so much harder for the next person, a genuine victim, to step forward.
Why? Because they worry.
They worry their claim will just be dismissed. They'll hear whispers or maybe just feel it in the air. Oh, here we go again, probably another frivolous complaint.
And even if the internal committee members themselves try to be neutral, that history of misuse, it must affect how they approach a new case, right?
It inevitably does. It forces the IC to start from a place of, maybe not bias, but certainly profound doubt. The institutional knowledge says we've been burned before by malicious cases, so we have to be extra careful, extra skeptical.
Which means what for the real victim going through the process?
It means the investigation might feel longer, more intrusive, more psychologically draining. Their genuine pain and trauma get met with this layer of suspicion. The very process meant to help them ends up feeling like another ordeal. They start to fear, deep down, that maybe no one will believe their story, no matter how true it is.
So the trust doesn't just break down inside the company. It damages the credibility of the POSH Act itself.
Precisely. When these malicious cases get attention, it reinforces negative stereotypes. It leads employers, and even some employees, to start thinking of the act as problematic, inherently flawed, rather than protective.
Okay, wait a minute. If employers are seeing the law as problematic because of misuse, isn't the failure sometimes with the internal committee? Maybe they're not skilled enough or quick enough to tell a true claim from a false one efficiently? Are we blaming the law when maybe it's the execution?
That's a really critical point of friction. You're right. The legislation itself, the principles, they're sound. It's often the application where things fall down in organizations.
Right.
And that takes us straight into solutions. Organizations have to find a balance. They need to fiercely protect victims and uphold the act's integrity, absolutely. But at the same time, they need robust ways to protect people from being falsely accused. Fairness has to be the absolute bedrock.
Okay, so let's talk mechanisms. How do you ensure that balance? What's the key thing organizations need to do to fight the misuse?
It really comes down to the internal committee, the IC. They need to be properly formed, properly trained, and fully empowered. They must conduct investigations that are thorough, unbiased, impartial, and follow due process meticulously.
Training seems key there.
Huge. Organizations need to invest seriously in training their ICs. not just on the letter of the law, but on investigative techniques, how to handle all complaints objectively, sensitively, how to look for intent, not just check boxes about evidence.
What about, well, the consequences, the teeth? For someone who deliberately makes a false, malicious claim, the Act allows for action, right? That needs to be clear.
Yes, that deterrent is vital. If the IC concludes, after a proper investigation, that a complaint was filed with malicious intent, the person who filed it can face serious disciplinary action.
How serious?
The sources are clear. You can go as far as termination of employment.
Termination. Wow.
It sounds harsh, but the purpose is critical. To stop people from using the system for revenge or personal gain, and to make sure it remains a path to justice for those who genuinely need it.
Okay, that's a massive stick. Termination is career ending. We definitely need strong deterrence. I get that.
Yeah.
But doesn't that create its own potential problem?
How so?
Well, doesn't the threat of termination, even if it's only meant for malicious cases, potentially scare off someone who is genuine but maybe doesn't have strong evidence? Doesn't it make the IC's job even tougher, trying to distinguish a weak but genuine case from a malicious one, knowing the stakes are so high for the complainant, too?
It absolutely creates a tightrope walk. That is precisely the tension. You need those clear, serious consequences to maintain the system's integrity and deter misuse. But you also need a culture where employees trust the IC to differentiate, to understand that a case lacking evidence isn't the same as a case built on lies.
Which points towards needing proactive steps, right? Getting ahead of this before a complaint is even filed.
Education, transparency. Those are your best defenses. Organizations need regular, mandatory training, not just checking a box, but really explaining the purpose of the POSH Act.
And
Crucially, integrating clear information about what constitutes a false complaint and what the very real ramifications are for filing one maliciously. When people understand that false reporting isn't just frowned upon, but has severe, career-altering consequences, that's a powerful deterrent. It helps build that culture of professionalism and trust.
So this deep dive really highlights a core tension. The goal of the POSH Act, a safe workplace, is absolutely essential, non-negotiable.
Right.
But making it work in reality, that needs really robust, well-trained systems. Systems that can support genuine victims effectively, but also have the strength and clarity to identify and deal with deliberate, malicious misuse.
So what does this all mean for you listening? It means just being compliant isn't enough. Your organization needs to be actively engaged. You need to invest.
Invest in what specifically?
In robust, transparent investigation processes, in having clear, well-communicated consequences for misuse, and in continuous, nuanced education for everyone. It's only through that kind of balanced, careful approach that you can really minimize the damage from false complaints and keep building an environment that's fair, safe, and supportive for all your people.
And that point about termination, the severe consequence for malice. It leaves us with a really difficult question to think about, doesn't it? If the penalty for a maliciously false complaint is potentially career-ending, how do organizations make absolutely sure that this necessary deterrent doesn't accidentally silence genuine victims, especially those who might lack concrete proof, who might already be scared?
Yeah.
It's the core paradox, isn't it? Protecting the innocent person accused and protecting the vulnerable person making the accusation. How do you build a system strong enough to handle the worst intent, but empathetic enough not to scare away someone genuine but fragile?
That is the ongoing challenge, not just in India, but for legal systems and workplace policies everywhere. It's a tension that definitely needs constant thought and refinement.
We'll leave you to mull that one over. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.